Good evening and welcome to Mindful Live 172. Thank you for being here. I am your host Nathan Springer. It is the 19th of January, what people call the longest month of the year. They talk about 100 days of January, but we know that's not true. It's the 19th of January. January is progressing. It is progressing. It's Thursday, and on Thursday we do Thursday Talks where you're free to jump in the live, join the live. Over there, we're streaming live on TikTok, on Instagram, and now on YouTube also. If you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, that may be beneficial. Head over to YouTube, Nathan Springer over there. Be sure to subscribe. Double tap that screen if you're over there on TikTok. Hit that like button over there on Instagram and on YouTube. And let's get into the Thursday Talks. It feels like January 39th. I will not have you. January is a beautiful month. Why the police did not charge the person who was driving that vehicle, I do not know. Police work on evidence. If the vehicle was speeding, they would need evidence, I suppose, that the driver was speeding. And I'm not sure how they would get that evidence. What do you think about Buddhism? I don't know a lot about Buddhism in terms of the in-depth. I think in terms of the practical, humanistic side of it, some of their practices do make some sense. Now, we were speaking initially about the dancehall music, and I was saying I saw an article not too long ago coming out from Jamaica, where in Jamaica I believe they banned, or they were talking about banning, the dancehall songs from the radio stations. And interestingly enough, Bounty Killer, I don't know his real name, it would have been really convenient if I remembered his real name at that moment, but Bounty Killer came out and he was in support of that. He was saying that initially, when they came out in the trenches in this badmanism dancehall music, it was not intended for mainstream radio play. It was basically meant to be kind of underground style music. And that actually was a consideration in my mind. If part of the problem that we are seeing now is that music that really may not have been meant to be displayed in the manner it is being displayed, that's what we're seeing now. This music was kind of meant to be underground with those guys who understand the lives they're living. Now we have people making money off of it, playing it over the mainstream airwaves. Now, the thing is, I don't know if I even support a ban on it in that way. Now, if you have decency laws and obscenity laws in your country, that makes sense. But the thing is, to me, a lot of these problems are cultural problems more than legal problems. If a majority of the people, well, not a majority, but if a large enough number of the people in your country want to go and start singing about killing each other, then I don't think that's a legal problem you have. It's a cultural problem where they are being groomed into a negative culture. So I don't think I would support banning it, because I don't like the government banning creative expression and speech in that way. I think that's not really a good direction to head down. It's, to me, when you're talking about banning, when you're talking about making things illegal, putting people in jail for things, I'm not talking about whether the thing is a good thing, whether the thing is a bad thing. I'm talking about the power you give to politicians. Bear in mind, banning dancehall music isn't just waving a magic wand and making sure that all your teenage loved ones do not get into contact with this so evil, bastardized music. No. What it is giving the government power to decide what the radio station plays. Now, they already have some power over that, but it's increasing the power there. So I'm very careful whenever I ask for things being banned, things being illegal. I think those are some slippery roads to go down. Thoughts on the carnival costumes? Again, cultural. I think on a given day, if someone was to wear a carnival costume and walk the road, they may be charged with public indecency. But it's the culture that we have developed, and our culture says it's okay. So what do? Our culture says it's okay. Do we ban it? And everyone in the culture seems very okay with it. Cultural problems, I think, much more than legal problems. If they want it, they will get it. Very often, that's how it goes. Artistry is good. brother, I admire you and your talk, real talk, I'm really hurt and need some help for my son being killed. I could understand that. And it seems obvious. I would expect that. I would expect if you are going that kind of reality, yeah, you would be hurt and you would want something out of it. If there are boundaries to abide by, trust and believe, artists would fall in line. No, no, they won't. I think some people still think we live in a world that does not exist anymore. The internet is out there. You cannot put that genie back inside of the bottle. If you make a guideline and say legally you cannot cuss, well, that's not going to work in terms of the artistry. There are guidelines in terms of guns. In Trinidad, guns are illegal. Yet still these bad men have more guns than they can do crime with, apparently. They spend a lot of their time showing off the guns online. They have so many. Even if they make other songs, it would just not get played on radio. And that was the point I was making about what Bounty Killer was saying. The actual problem with the dancehall right now, Trinidad. Trinidad music is not only on radio. It's not only on radio that the youth experience this. I wonder if you do a survey with Gen Z, let me just say children, people under the age of 26. I wonder how many of them intake most of their music from radio, or how many of them go on YouTube and get the latest Trinidad song. Prince Swanee, Plumpy Boss, those guys did not get popular from the radio. They did not get popular from the radio. Yes, heavy rain down here. Heavy rain down here. That's what's going on. But yeah, y'all are hearing it. That's why usually during the rainy season I used to take a nice little break on the rainy evenings. But yes, we're here nonetheless. I hope you all are still hearing me pretty clearly, even over there on Instagram. So most of these guys did not get popular from radio. The radio was not playing Swan in the earlys. The radio was not playing Rebel 6. The radio was not playing K-Lion in the earlys. Those guys did not become popular from the radio. They became popular over social media and over the internet. And if you ban them on radio, can you imagine the market for banned music among teens through their phones? Hey. They want to ban tune them, boy. They the ban tune, boy. And they ban this one, boy. Come on, like, I mean, you have to think about things practically. Nisi says, I don't even know who these people are. Nisi. There. It's alright. You know, we all age, we all get older, and we all fall out of the loop at some point. So it's understandable as you age, you occasionally age out of the loop. Things need to be banned to change the culture. No! The culture needs to change for the things to be banned. You don't need to ban it to change the culture. Banning it isn't going to change the culture. Banning it isn't going to change the culture. Guns are banned, and there's a strong gun culture in Trinidad and Tobago. It's not about whether it's banned or not, it's the culture. We have a heavy criminal culture in Trinidad. Do you think the murder rate spiked to the highest ever, over 600? Laws run the country? No, laws don't run the country. The culture runs the country. Laws are culturally enforced. We have laws, you know, I did an entire session on this. We have laws. Carnival is supposed to be illegal by our laws. We have laws where you cannot dance lewdly, and whining is dancing lewdly. You are supposed to be locked up, but no one is locked up because it's a cultural thing. Laws are enforced based on the culture. That's what makes laws enforced or not. So, if you ban the music, you are going to make it more popular. And this is my frustration so often with government and heavy-handed decisions. So often people seem like they don't understand the dynamics of people. They think, okay, this thing is bad thing is bad, so let's ban bad thing and we will stop bad thing. That's not how it works. That is just not how it works. There's a whole list of things that are illegal that we cannot stop. If you have an interest in stopping something, then you go at it in a certain direction. Now, as I said, the reason I would not want it banned in general is because it's a matter of freedom of expression, it's a matter of creativity, it's a matter of freedom of speech. Those are some dangerous things. If you have it that the government has more control over speech, even if you consider it as a manner of lewdness and vulgarity, then you give the government more power over what you see. Do you want to give the government that? No, I think not. What I would prefer is that parents do what parents are supposed to do. If a parent doesn't want their child to listen to Badman Trinidad music, their child would not listen to Badman Trinidad music. You have control over that. And please, no one jump into the chat and say nonsense like you make the child but you don't make their mind, because that is a lie. You can look at the world as it exists and see that is a lie. Parents who pay more attention to their children turn out better. Parents who pay less attention to their children turn out worse. And then some of us with our great observational skills would look at that and say you could make the child but you can't make their mind. So then parenting makes no sense. What are we doing this parenting for? Let's be like snakes. You make the child and then slither off into the bushes and leave the child to grow up on its own. So no, you can't make the child's mind. You can't control the environment around the child. It just takes more effort. And the problem is, a lot of people do not want to expend the effort that it is required to do that. You make a child, you are supposed to control the environment around the child. That child has friends. You are supposed to control the environment as such that you decide the kind of friends that your child chooses. There was once upon a time where your entire friend circle was known by your parents. Your parents wanted to know every single person you called a friend. I don't know about you, but I had the kind of parents that were very serious about who I called a friend. If I called someone a friend, they would say, is that your friend or is that your schoolmate? Because they want to know that for sure. That's the kind of parents that I had. And I think we need some more of that. You could ban how much you want to ban. Ban it from every single radio station. If you have parents who do not pay attention to their children, they would have the phones. They would have the phones and enter the phones. They have WhatsApp. Here's the thing, sir. No, they don't have WhatsApp. They have a phone. And they have a phone because you gave a phone to them. And then on top of that, they have internet because you allow them access to the internet. The funny thing is, some of the people who are some of the more struggling on the financial side act like their children cannot exist without phones and social media and access to the internet, unbridled access to the internet. But yet, some of the wealthiest people who own these social media platforms regularly see they do not allow their children on these platforms. They do not allow their children to have a phone. Listen, giving an immature, basically sociopathic mind, that's what those children at 12, 13, adolescents are, basically sociopaths, giving them unlimited, unbridled access to the raw switch that is social media and internet is a horrible idea. Yes, Ria? Let's make sure we are on the right one there. Yes. We are listening, Ria.
So let's go back a little bit on the banning thing. Don't think that I'm saying we want to censor music totally in Trinidad and Tobago. I think one of the things that makes us one of the best countries ever, and well, the best one in the Caribbean at least, is the fact that we have diversity across multiple things, music being one of them. When I say ban it from mainstream media, being TV and radio mainly, is because I think what is mostly in the public domain should not be something that affects them negatively. No, this is not meaning that other things that would be in the public domain would not exist. But just the same way with the example with your friends and whatever. If it is you are in a house and your mother tells you, once you under my roof, no smoking. But when it is you leave the house, you go by a friend, you go by the side of the road, whatever, you smoke then. But you know when it is you enter your mother's house, that is a definite no. The fact that there are boundaries, there are limitations with what you can and cannot do with these rules set forward means that there is some sort of regulation taking place, that you know right from wrong, that you know when it is you are in this particular space, this is how you're supposed to operate. That's the same thing with the soca artists that I was alluding to, that if it is you let them know your songs would play in a fete, because a fete is an adult scene, your songs would play on YouTube or wherever it is, whatever streaming platform it has. Children would still hear it, yes. Teenagers would still hear it, yes. Because it's not banned from Trinidad and Tobago. But on radio, Take Bamboo Gyal would not be played. On radio, whatever other Trinidad song that there is that alludes to sexual or sexual content or violence would not be played, because that is not the message that should be for everybody. So
what about Gene and Dinah?
Like that.
What about Gene and Dinah? Would that be played?
Well, to me personally, I would say no.
So now do you
again? So if it is you have again, that's what I'm saying, across the board, from not just Trinidad, not just soca, across the board in music. Once it is sexual content or violence, in my opinion, it shouldn't be on the mainstream platforms, because once it is something that everybody could digest, it should be on mainstream platforms. If it is something 18 plus, 16 plus, it's not that everybody something. Just the same way there's great movies, there's great music. It should not be on the public platform, because the same way you cannot control viewership. Like now, if somebody goes on YouTube, that whole thing you're talking about parents, if they know, if they don't know, that is a separate point on its own. But that is something where it is they go looking for it. It is not something that they're sitting down in a maxi and they end up hearing it. It is not something where it is they just standing up in the quasi and this loud cart is blasting music, and it's just, well, not a car, sorry, blasting music.
I understand what you're saying. Now, I agree to a certain point. So, because we do have a certain responsibility to control what is in the commons, in the public commons. So, pornography, for example, you cannot allow that to just be displayed in public. And I agree with that. I agree. It shouldn't be that a station could just broadcast pornography out on the national airwaves. That shouldn't be so. So yes, there should be limitations. And there are limitations already. So there are limitations in Trinidad. You can't play certain words over the radio. But what you tend to notice is the more they clamp down, the reason I saw Nisi said it, that I think it wasn't outwardly crass back in the day. The reason there was that is because there were more rules. And what you tend to see is the more rules you get, the people tend to try to just do things to get around the rules. Not saying that there shouldn't be rules in the first place, but I agree to a certain point, yes, there should be limitations on extreme levels of vulgarity. The problem being, the example you gave of parents in the house. The government is not our parent. The government is not supposed to function as our parent. And I think some of the problems we have in this comes from not understanding the role that we expect from our government. What do we expect from our government? For some people, the main purpose of the government is to protect property rights, private property rights, and to protect national sovereignty. Besides that, the government isn't supposed to be involved in anything else. And the reason many people are of that view is because, generally speaking, when you look at it, the government being involved in something very often does not really help it. And very often you see that what the government does, because the government isn't an all-knowing, kind, benevolent God. The government is an amalgamation of humans, people. And the questions that people ask themselves is, how much power you want to give people over you. Now, for someone who already has a sound family structure, you're looking at it and you're like, I don't actually want the government to determine whether I have to play something or don't have to play something in my house. I will manage my household. I will manage my children. I will raise my children as I spoke. Is that the parenting aspect? I think many people, many of us, and really and truly, many women vote for this more. Vote for more nanny governments. They want the government to be much more involved. The government doesn't stop this. Why the government doesn't help that? Why the government doesn't fix that? While I am someone generally, paradise. I am not saying here that I want the children to be exposed. I am saying they shouldn't be exposed. I agree with that. I am saying I don't want the government involved in those things.
No, but here's the question, and I understand what you're saying, but here's my question. If it were that the government need not be involved, I think a while now, something more done. So if it is censorship laws were determined by COT, for example, by now, COT would have probably been able to say, okay, so is the case. These are the moving forward as at 2022 with regards to music on airwaves or content being played on the mainstream media with regards to sexual content or violent content. And they would probably been able to put down these things. Maybe. Can't say for sure. But with regards to censorship laws, is the body responsible for that?
Who is the body?
The thing is responsible for putting down censorship laws. And the thing about it is, like, even when it is you bring up things like Gina and Dinah, granted, yes. As an adult, because I didn't get it as a child, I thought Gina and Dinah was just Gina and Dinah. Rosita was Rosita, you know. So when it is, we hear these songs as children, in innocence, we don't see anything wrong with it, and this is the double entendre people talk about in music. But when it is, you come out, when it is, young brother says, when he comes out with his songs where it is, he's basically saying flat out,
we know,
what he says.
I understand.
There's no imagination. Right, there's no imagination left in it. They have no wondering, no second guessing. It have no nothing. It's just, it is what it is, as opposed to these other people who, when it is the adults could understand is that, but children, like I think I was telling you all this some time ago, the song Somebody Kitty Can't Get Away, I legit used to imagine a cat on my neighbor's wall, because I just think of somebody running down, because I used to run down my dog. I used to run down my dog all the time. And I just imagine somebody running down a little cat all over the place, a ginger cat or that. I don't know why I had this idea of this particular cat.
Yes.
It used to make us think. Not saying that it's right. Not saying that it's right. So that's what I'm saying. If there is some sort of censorship law and there is something put in, because even take bamboo. I mean, bamboo is bamboo, but bamboo, the way he said it, is not bamboo. How else you could interpret that other bamboo versus how you could interpret the biting insects, for example.
Yes, I understand that. But this is just the natural evolution of things. If you sang a song... This is not evolution, this is raw. Here's what I'm saying. If children grew... Listen. If generations grew up on hearing smut on the radio, they heard smut on the radio, that was part of Trinidad's culture, part of our calypsos was smut. That was well known. There was a smut genre.
Terrible.
Right. And listen, it's not new. It's not new. If you go back to some of those smut calypsos from even the 60s, etc., and you listen to it, you're like, wait, what? What did he just talk about? Right. And the problem is, yes, you had it a little more hidden, but that's not how generations work. That's not how generations work. If you grew up your children on that, they're going to come up and they're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to sing it more raw. That's just how generations work. So if we already have a culture of smut in music, it's kind of hypocritical to say, well, we're okay with smut in music, but then you must kind of hide the smut in the music. So then what is the problem? It's hypocritical.
It's okay,
and that's the...
If it is you want to create a song with smut in music, no problem. All I'm saying is that over the airwaves,
Right, and that has been part of our culture. That's what I'm saying. The problem is,
if you intend mindful all inclusive could play whatever it want to play. It could be
yes,
it can have you on
yes. The thing is, my point, as I've said, is continually that it is a cultural issue. It is a cultural issue. You can try to ban it, but it will not work in banning it because the culture propagates it. Now, okay, you think that may be a good idea, but it will not work like that. I'm just saying that. That's why the Chinese have more discipline. The Chinese have more discipline because it's cultural.
It's not, but that's what I'm saying. It's not banned in Trinidad. Your freedom of expression, your
I know, on the over the airwaves.
In general.
Over the airwaves.
But just over the airwaves. Or even if it is, you have a rule for radio stations where you're only allowed to play these types of music from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Right, Tony the Ambassador, you're saying a statement there along the lines of what I'm talking about. We have to ask ourselves why it has become more common. The reality is there are cultural decisions that we make that lead along certain lines. So, for example, I've been reading recently some real disturbing statistics, just researching a bit more on the whole fatherless, single-parent home business and all of that in the US. And when you read that, it is amazing. The United States has, I think, 24% of their population of children living in single-parent households. In China, it's 3%. In India, it's 4%. The average around the world is 7%. So there is a cultural reason that the United States went down that route. That's not just a happenstance. They did something to their culture. They made decisions that made that happen. Now, if the United States, if President Biden jumps up in the morning and says, we hereby ban single-parent homes, do you think that will solve the problem? No, it won't, because it's a cultural issue. It was developed in the culture. Do you have to listen to any music or anything you don't want to listen to? No, you do not have to. No, you do not have to listen to any music. So yes, that's all my point. I am not saying that the music is good for children to listen to. I am not saying that it should be played on the radios. But if we did not have a demand for it playing on the radios, then no one would listen to any radio that played the music, and then that would solve itself. It would solve itself. It's working on the demands of the people. Yeah, Ria, what's that?
Tracking back to your point, where it is you say, if Biden was to say in the morning that you're banning single-parent households, right? Let's just say. I don't mean to sound bad. In order for him to put down a rule of banning single-parent households, it means things would have had to happen to be able to ban single-parent households.
Like?
In order to ban single-parent households, you need to be able to ban pregnancies, not so? Or you need to ban sex from happening, period. So you would have to put on some other law to enforce this one. Not so?
Not necessarily. The law would be all-encompassing to those. Within the same law, you do that. Now, I don't want to get into...
If I'm pregnant, that means I have to get married to whomever the father is.
Well, there are places with those laws, you know.
It has to be no single-parent household. So it's either I abort or marry the man.
Yeah, marry the man very likely would be the solution they would think of. Right, that's what it is in most places. If the man is already married, then you would have to take a second wife. Listen, I'm not going into... Pause for a moment. I am not going into arguing about the benefits of banning single-parent homes. I'm not going into those details because that is not the point I am making.
That you would need to make more rules, or you need to put down more things in place to be able to enforce that.
And do you think you would not have to do that to ban the music from the airwaves? Who is going to monitor the airwaves? So then what is the point? That's exactly the point I'm making. That banning it is not how you go about stopping these things. Just as if you want to change the single parent rate in the United States, you figure out what they interfered with in their culture that caused that, and you try to uninterfere with that. If you want to change the Trinidad music from cussing people and talking about which marrow will fly and which brain will leak out, if you have a problem with that, then you have to go back to the culture that created that, and you have to attempt to work on that culture.
No, but exactly, and this is what I'm. This is isn't this the point we're making now? Culturally, we accept something even before when it is you look at it. Culturally, in your home, you accept something different, or you set different rules for culturally when it is you're out. You probably just dance with your children in your kitchen, well, kind of swaying to the side. When it is you out there, use the saucy wild bell fun, your bottom everywhere, jiggly jiggly everywhere. You know, because that is not something you want your children to see. So who you are, or not who you are, but the version of yourself, or what it is you present in front of your children is not what you can do on the outside. It's the same thing with the radio. The radio would give us certain types of music that set us at a standard to say, well, hey, this is what is socially acceptable for all ages.
Okay, Ria. So do you know that we already have radio standards in Trinidad? You can't play cuss on radio. I think you can't even say weed on radio.
They cuss on radio. What do you mean?
They could play the F word on Trinidad radio.
I don't know what the F word, but it does have cuss words on radio.
Which cuss words? What do you define as cuss words then?
Well, sorry. In my house, everything is a curse word, from ass, shit.
Well, no.
Even hell, to be honest.
Ass is not a curse word. Ass, by definition, is not a curse word. It's not about in the Bible. It's just by definition they don't generally consider it a curse word. So that's why you could hear ass on the radio station.
And this is my thing. Can children use it?
Huh?
Can children use it?
Ass in the right context, why not?
Nathan, your daughter at 7 years old is going to go and say, what the ass? Or this ass was riding in Jerusalem.
Oh, this ass, well, no problem. No problem. She can speak about asses and the jackasses and the donkeys and different animals, different beasts of burden. That's just the name of them. Like, if you're talking in technical terms about a female dog, there's a specific name for that animal. You call a female their doe, so you call the female dog what it is. There are words and there are meanings. But here's the point I'm trying to make with this here. There are already rules.
You go ahead.
Wait, there are already rules. So, what new rules would you propose, and how do you propose that they go about enforcing these rules?
I just think censorship-wise, again, this is not getting into the nitty-gritty, but once it is, it cannot be or should not be consumed by all ages. It should not be on mainstream media.
How do you consider what should or shouldn't be consumed by all ages?
Common sense.
You see, Ria, this is how your law just fold up right there. You see, right there, your law fold up and thrown away. What you mean common sense? Don't you live on the planet Earth?
Okay, no.
You think common sense is common?
No, but hold on. That's what I say. Give me a song, and then we will both decide if this is something to be allowed on mainstream media for all ages. Can all ages listen to this?
Well, then...
You dig? It's not like...
Ria, what you are saying then is that the people would only be able to decide it when they listen to the song. So what you're going to have to create is create a department of music listening where every artist who wants their song to be played on radio must send their songs to the department of music listening, and that department will listen to the songs, and they would all have master degrees in common sense and decide whether the song is worthy for the young children to listen to. That's how you're going to have that function. How is it going to work?
Okay, so hear me out. So when it is these people are making music, they don't know for sure what category could fall into. Let's say, you're making music, and it's very simple. You have music that cannot be played on air, and music that can be played on air. regardless of what category they fall into, all of your music could be uploaded to YouTube. It could be on Spotify. It could be on whatever other streaming device or platform, whatever it is it have. But you as an artist, when it is you say, well, it is one for radio, one that could be played on radio. If I am a DJ or announcer or whatever, and this song reaches my radio station, I'm not going to play it for the first time on air. But if it is I play it and I have a question about it, and I ask somebody, we are allowing this, we're not allowing this. You know, I think across the board, everybody should know more or less whether this is accepted or not. So if it is this person, this artist says, hey, this is rated so and so, who's the
Ria, you're living in a utopia, Ria. You think that across... Do you think that there's anything... Do you think there's anything you could get everyone to agree about? That there's any standard?
But what I'm saying, instead of it reaching a radio station where everybody now has to decide, there should be whomever. I mean, oh gosh, is to me it's not. To me, it's an easy fix. When I say easy, relatively easy. A song is to be released. It's rated in a category.
Who rates it? Who rates it?
The censorship committee. I don't know what you want to name them.
Exactly, Ria. So you're going. That's right there. Wait, before we go on, that's the point I'm getting at. So you're saying you're going to have to create a censorship committee. Who is going to decide who sits on the censorship committee? The government?
Well, it depends on who you're giving the responsibility to.
Ria, it's your proposal. So is it the government that decides who sits on the censorship committee?
No, well, if it is I'm the government, and there is a music organization already established, which is COT, who deals with copyrights. In order for them to copyright, isn't it at some point in time played for them to hear so that they're not infringing on other people's copyright, or just to make sure that no other thing is happening?
That's not how it works. They investigate complaints for the most part. They don't go listening to every song played. They investigate complaints.
So if it is I produce a song and it has a sample from somebody else's song, I could just put that out and there's nobody to, and it's only when a complaint is made then COD gets involved. They're not able to say that from the jump.
Yes. That has happened numerous. Ria, do you know how many musical artists? Do you know how many musical artists have been sued? Have been sued after years or sometimes months of their songs being out and being played, and then some old man here, wait, I know that little beast. Some one of them old Jamaicans say, hey, you thief a line from a song back in the 90s, and they call up their lawyer. Their lawyer then contacts the copyright board and makes the complaints.
No, well, that is the big music space. That is Hollywood. I'm more talking about just in Trinidad. There is
I'm saying that it functions the same. It functions the same, just on a smaller basis.
Oh, okay.
So, Ria, what you're saying here, just so you know, I'll let you finish, but just making sure you know that what you're saying is the government is going to appoint a censorship board.
No.
Go and propose that to any Western country.
I am saying music TT or COT or whatever other music board that there is already should be doing this. They should be doing just the same way, just the exact same way that even when movies come into Trinidad, even though it's already rated, do you know that they watch it before it goes to the cinema?
How many movies are shown on a cinema, Ria? A movie cinema and a radio station is not the same thing.
But what I'm saying is just the way that there is that, they should have the next two.
And there's what I was saying that's what I was saying initially. So then what you're proposing is we create a music listening board. So a board who is going to listen to every song that is being sent to the radio station.
New business, no, just a section in one of the businesses already established. Let's say Koto Music, TT or whomever.
Do you know?
You want to establish a new business, a whole board of directors, a whole new HR, a whole
Ria,
new team, a whole new administration.
do you know how many songs are sent to the radio? Ria, do you know how many songs are sent to the radio? So you know how big that section is going to have to be. And then they aren't just going to have to listen to the music, they're going to have to try and decipher the lyrics, because sometimes they don't know for sure what they're saying in the lyrics. So they're going to have to decipher the wait. They're going wait. They're going to have to decipher the lyrics. They're going to have to write it down. They're going to have to record exactly which lyrics just now. They're going, and I'll tell you why. You don't worry. You will rebut me after. They're going to have to write down exactly which lyrics contravened which policy. Because when the artist calls their lawyer and says, lawyer, I go to call a lawyer name, but still let me not get myself in trouble. Lawyer, please, I want to do a judicial review on why they banned my song. You're going to have to state in the judicial review exactly which lyrics contravened your vulgarity law. So every single song you ban, you're going to have to write down exactly where they were wrong and why they were wrong. Can you imagine the amount of work involved in doing something like that? Who is going to pay for this?
Who pays music, TT? However, they think this is. But okay, so here's what I'm saying, right? So you need to tell me in this year of our law 2023, when it is you sending your track, you can't send your lyrics to your song one time. And hold on, wait, don't mean to song bad. I'm not saying that soca artists are stupid, but you really need to tell me if it is. I am informing you that if it is you are of certain nuances, whatever, in your song, we will not play, even if it's one line, it will not be played on mainstream, on regular radio, on irregular stations. It will have to be only when it is your thing. You cannot make a version where it is you completely change the one line in that song.
Well, yes, there are censored versions. That's the other part of the point I was talking about.
No, but even in making censored versions to ensure that it is still not vulgar.
Ria. I'm just asking, how do you propose something like this would work? Do you think it's feasible to hire a board to listen to all songs and critique whether it's too vulgar for the radio station? I'm sorry, but big foreign artists make radio versions for their tunes in order to still get that airtime. I agree. And that's, I was saying this in the initial. I said that there are already laws, there are already rules about what can play on the radio. Ria isn't talking about rules where you don't allow obscene words. Obscene words is a much easier thing to classify. You could have algorithms listening for obscene words, and that triggers something very easily. That's why they have their censored versions, and sometimes the censored version is just a beep or they block out the sound. But Ria is talking about the topic of the song in and of itself being too vulgar, in as far as, and we spoke about this before, Jean and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina on the corner posing. So in that case, we'd have to hire a board to literally go through the song lyrics and decide if it's too vulgar or not. That's a lot of work. I don't think it's feasible to pay a board to do that. I really don't. And that's some of the problems with these things. It's just a problem that exists. And the way you stop it isn't by banning it with the government. It's by changing the culture. It's by allowing each person to raise the people around them with sense. It's really a lot. Youth says, Connor, who's that? Jump in, let me hear what you have to say.
When it is you say change the culture, here's my question.
Yeah.
You would like the soca the artists, sorry, not just soca, you would like the artists to change their culture, the radio stations to change their culture, because I can tell you, from what I know, persons who are members of the traveling public, they do agree with not playing certain songs on radio simply because of the every demographic that is hearing it.
So who tunes into the radio station? If the general public doesn't want to listen to it, who tunes into the radio station?
Well, remember, these are station for whatever vibes or whatever. I don't know. The Maximen, the listen to me. I am not a traveling member of the public, but I can tell you everybody that I know that travels. At some point in time, they have complained that certain things should not be played, especially when it is you have, again, public transport. You have a lot of children heading to schools and
what I'm trying to point out,
in these spaces.
what I'm trying to point out is that it could obviously never be everybody saying that. If everybody was saying that, then they would not tune in to the radio station. If everybody was saying that, then the one maxi who keeps tuning into the Costco radio station, you won't travel with him. These are the things that the free market decides, and that's what I'm talking about with culture. If you do not like this, do not participate in it. And if the country apparently likes it and they do participate in it, you have some problems. Because here's another angle to look at. When we were talking initially about what the government is for, bear in mind a government, as we vote for them, it's a democratic voted government. What do you want the government to do? There are two options. The government can do what the people who voted for them want them to do, or they could do what they think is the right thing. Which version of the government would you like? Would you like a government that does what the people who tell them to vote, who voted for them, tells them to do? Or would you like a government who does what they think is right? I want a government actually who does what the people who voted for them tells them to do. Because I don't want you to go in there and do your own version of what you think is right. You are voted for by these people. You are supposed to represent the desires of these people. Now, here's the problem with that. If the desires of these people seems to be that they like to hear cussing on the radio, well, not cussing, but they like to hear Take Bamboo on the radio, the people are not stopping it.
Nobody comes up of a maxi because they don't like the music that's playing.
You see, that is the problem with all your youths, all your dono tanties, all your dono tanties. Listen, I remember tanties back in the day. I remember tanty ranting. Don't stop me in the middle of my rant. Do not stop me in the middle of my rant. I remember tanties back in the day who sit down with the market bag, come from market, and they telling the drive, change that station, drive, I don't listen to that kind of rubbish, you know. And if the driver doesn't change it, she'd say, drop me right here, driver taking it right here. And you see, if you think this thing is so corrosive to the essence of Trinidad and Tobago, then you shouldn't want any part with it.
Then I think, okay, but you see, even in that point that you made there, that comes with not just a bravery, but a strength that you only develop. I don't want to say only, but you mainly develop when it is you are an adult. As a 14-year-old, nobody's in a maxi saying, try to change the music. You're just sitting down there and you're just waiting to stop off where you have to stop off.
I'm not talking about the 14-year-olds, because you're talking about the regular traveling members of the public. If the traveling members of the public don't like it, then it would change. I don't believe that they don't like it. I believe that it is a part of the culture enough, where enough people like it that they want it to continue. These radio stations run based on ads. Radio stations run based on ads. The advertisers pay them so that more people would hear the ads. That's how the radio makes money. If no one was listening to the radio, then no advertiser would pay the station. So then, obviously, lots of people are listening to this. How would I start to change the culture? By what I'm doing right here, Paradise. By what I'm doing right here. By what I'm doing right here in terms of encouraging people to do just that same thing. By changing in and of myself. By those who I actually have contact with. And I teach also. So let that be the note. Good time to tell you that this is all brought to you by Mindful Education. It's the educational platform that I run, the institution that I run. You could follow us over there on Instagram or on Facebook. Mindful with 2 L's, Mindful_education. You can follow us there. We run learning pods, which are homeschool styled classes with small classes around 6 students, where they could all get to know each other, their fellow students, and know their tutors, and get much more comfortable in that learning. We run our classes based on learning stage, not age. So we have preschool learning pods, we have early primary, late primary, early secondary, and late secondary. So be sure to hit us up if you are interested in such things. We also do private tutoring for more CXC and CAPE subjects. Hit us up.
This is a
Yes.
very long ad, eh? Okay, because that's a real long ad you put on there. That was a whole minute.
When hey,
Here's
my
question,
ads
right?
have to be said. The advertisers are paying.
Here's my question, right? If it is music is censored on radio, or certain music is banned on radio, as again, not banned in general, banned on radio, right? Do you think people would listen to radio less? Do you think they would still listen to the same stations they're listening to, or just a different station they're listening to, dependent on who could bring the vibes?
I don't think they would listen to radio less. It would be the same amount. People who listen to radio for a certain amount of hours would still listen to radio for the same amount of hours. I don't think they would listen to it less. But that was never my point in the banning. My point in the banning wasn't about people listening to radio less. People would listen to generally what is presented to them on their stations, generally. If they find it too obscene, they will change it. So the problem with the banning I'm talking about isn't people stop listening to the radio. It's that I don't think it would work for the purpose that we want it to work for. You're saying that you want to do the banning to actually help to change the culture. But I don't think that will work. You will just make it more popular. It will be the banned music.
No, wait, hold on. You see, and that's the thing. I don't think in not having the music on the radio, necessarily we change any culture in the way that you think in it. We're just changing the culture only in what is presented for the general public through these media platforms. The culture of where children are still exposed to inappropriate music would still exist. It just would not.
So Ria, here's a question I have for you. You said
when it is they headed to school.
You said in your house nearly everything was a curse. You said in your house nearly everything was a curse. So with certain radio station, didn't you say in your house growing up nearly everything was a curse?
No, with Alex. When I say Alex, is like, mommy, it is. I can't say shit without Alex telling me language.
Alright, so with him there, and there's certain radio stations that you just won't play around him?
We don't listen to radio. Nathan, do you know? You need to tune it out of my lives. We listen to Mamma Mia.
And this is the point I'm making. This is the point I am making. That this really and truly is a cultural issue. It is a cultural issue. So whether the government bans or doesn't ban the music on the radio stations isn't going to affect your son, is it?
He still is exposed to music. The first time he came home singing Take Bamboo Girl because he was by his father, I was like, you hear that by daddy? Who was playing it? He was just hearing it, like and that was all he was hearing.
Ria, and that's if they banned it on the radio, you would still end up with that problem. That problem isn't solved.
That's what I'm saying. I understand that, right, but that's what I say. When it is we talk about changing the culture, we're not talking about changing the entire culture of Trinidad and Tobago, where it is we no longer accept certain things. We just limit where it is you can hear it. As I say, in effect, you could hear anything that is an adult crowd, that is for an adult audience. You could play the adult music. But in a general setting, where it's for all, okay, so for example, if it for a fete in the night from let me say all inclusive from 5 to 11. That is an adult crowd. You could cater for the adult crowd there. But if it is, I'm going to Nikki Land, there is no reason why I should be hearing certain songs in Nikki Land because that is catering.
I agree.
So just the same way, once it's in a public domain where it is, there possibly could be children present, particularly at the mainstream forms of media, traditional forms of media, then there should be some sort of censorship.
Here's my point in that, and I'm glad you bring. I'm going to use the Nikki Land to show my point in this.
And the man across the road is still blasting real inappropriate music.
In Nikki Land, the reason they don't play certain types of music in Nikki Land isn't because it's banned by the government in Nikki Land. No, it's because Auntie Nikki knows if she play a set of Trinidad music in Nikki Land, next year Nikki Land parents won't come out. Again, the free market, decisions by individuals in the free market. It's not on the government to make us make the right choices. The government's job is to make sure they cultivate the ability for us to make our own choices without fear of being criminally hurt while doing it. Grand. They do that. It's up to us to make those choices, and you are allowed to make bad choices. You are allowed to make bad choices. I just don't think, because we went through this already. We already have some pretty heavy censorship laws in Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad already has obscenity laws. You can't cuss in Trinidad and Tobago legally, and yet our police. That's a prime example. It's illegal to cuss in Trinidad and Tobago, yet our police be cussing everybody left, right, and center. Our police are the most cuss-cull, obscene people in this country, and it's illegal to cuss. Cultural issues. Making cussing more illegal for the police isn't going to stop them from cussing. It's a cultural issue.
So question, when it is you say the culture needs to change, who you think is a change in the culture? Is it that we supposed to put the pressure on artists? Is it that artists supposed to put the pressure on themselves, or is it that the radio supposed to put the pressure on the artists?
All of the above.
It comes down to who's making the music.
All of the above. But each individual only has control of each individual. So you can't make the artist do anything. You could only do things within your sphere of influence. So you do what you can do in your sphere of influence. But what I'm saying is, when I'm saying something is a cultural issue, it's that you change the direction you look at it in. You aren't looking to a politician, a government agency, someone to solve this issue. You're understanding the issue is unsolvable unless individuals within the society decide to change. So what that allows is, if the issue gets worse, you don't feel disappointed. Oh no, it gets worse. You understand that, well, people don't want to change. Or if you want to get the issue better, you understand where the work is. The work isn't in campaigning for a better politician to get into the job so that they pass a law to censor the radio stations properly. No, the work is in going into some of these communities possibly and talking to parents and teaching parents how to parent better, and teaching children and providing the children with better education, providing them with better alternatives. That's where a lot of the work is. I don't want this and not having it and stick to we have to put pressure on myself, yes. However, therein lies the issue, because getting masses to agree with you is sometimes impossible. I agree with that. Area.
When it is you made that point from before, is it that you think, regardless of, so is it that you think it's not so much what is being put out there, but what is happening within the home? Once it is they have that solid foundation in the home, nothing outside would affect or should affect them like that. So the pressure should be on the individual themselves to not be persuaded or easily persuaded.
Yes, but I'd like to add a caveat that I'm not going to use the word nothing. Nothing is too big of a word. Where you said nothing is going to affect them, I wouldn't say nothing is going to affect them, but by and large, they would be much more resistant to those. And I have that view, and some people might consider it victim blaming, but I have that view even in some crime committed against you, even in some assaults, where when you look at these things, the focus kind of needs to be on the individual. What I could do to avoid this, because really and truly we aren't going to change the massive world out there. Yes, Paradise, ask your question by all means.
Question. So if it is the radio stations will to all come together, let's just say, and they say, you know what, we have to be a part of this change as well, and they put down their foot and they let soca artists know, they let Trinidad artists know, they let everybody know that from this point forward, once it is your music falls in a certain category, we will not be playing it on air. Or if it is played, it might be between the hours of 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., let's just say. Mm-hmm. Right? You think that's one of the things that would begin to enforce the necessary change?
I think that if that were to happen, would work much better than if the government were to issue a ban. If the radio stations decided, out of our own decision, listen, we don't like the direction this thing is heading in, we are not going to play your music if it goes like that. That is going to have a bigger cultural impact than if there was a ban or censorship going on. So yeah, I do think that would have a big. And here's how it works. Because generally speaking, if all the radio stations were to do that, what it means is those radio stations, or at least the people who have the decision making power in those radio stations, at least already have made a certain change in how they view certain things. Supply and demand, Brandon Best says, a healthier country morally produces a more healthier demand on the music. It's simple like that. There was once upon a time in certain places, you would release nothing but gospel. You didn't even have to be a Christian. You would just release gospel because that's all the people wanted to hear. It's supply and demand. Listen, I listen to some of those dancehall.
You want to hear Mamma Mia? You want to hear some?
No thanks. I listen to some of those Trinidad songs. The instrumental quality is horrible. The lyrical quality is horrible. The vocal quality is horrible. The production quality is horrible. The mastering quality is horrible. But somebody apparently likes it because it's still getting the views. That's a cultural phenomenon. It's not even about the quality of the thing. It's not like we discovered a new music that is just so captivating. The quality of the music itself lures the listener into listening it. No, it's horrible low quality music for the most part. Like, I understand the energy Young Brother has. I understand the energy. I could understand going to a live event and getting some vibes off a Young Brother. I can't understand walking. I'm sorry, no offense meant, Mr. Brother. If you're listening, no offense meant. But I personally can't understand listening Young Brother in my headphones. Like, I can't be walking down the road and listening Young Brother. It just doesn't work for me because I don't think it's quality music. So the fact that it's not quality music shows that it's a cultural phenomenon. It's like if you see ugly clothing catching on, it's a cultural phenomenon. All right. Folks, it is 11 o'clock. It's been a while. As usual, the Thursday talks always goes well. The Thursday talks always go well. So, if there are no further questions or TEMPA, right? If there are no further, as you say that, you know what bothered me? A Mansby, supposedly, has her as the main artist. Mansby. Something, I don't know. But you know what? I was insulting the Trinidad music. Before we go, I'd like to point out there are actually some Trinidad songs I find very catchy. I find some very catchy, and they have a kind of vibe. They have a kind of vibe. I
personally do not mind Trinidad songs. I like them.
There are some that me ain't gonna lie. There are some that really catchy. Jalano, he knows what he's doing, and he could sing.
It's not appropriate for my child, so that's why he would not hear them.
Arima got big guns. Have a vibe to it. Remember, punching is not for the weak. Thank you, King Mikes. And on that note, folks, if there are no further questions or comments, I hope you're entertained, informed, or educated. And I will see you guys for the next Mindful Live, which will be tomorrow evening between 9:15 or 9:30 is around where we start. And I will see you guys then. Until then, folks,